In these few lectures, we'll have a look at what Gita is all about. Gita is an extraordinary scripture. Extraordinary not only all that it offers to the modern world, but also extraordinary in its setting. If you look at all the rest of the scriptures which are there in the world, most of the scriptures are set in calm, comfortable, cozy surroundings. If you look at the Indian history, you'll find that the Upanishads are written in the form of conversation dialogues between the seeker of spirituality and the rishi who is deep in the forest meditating, and the questions are answered. Here in Gita, the setting is very different. Arjun, who is a Pandav, is standing in between the two huge armies of a big war that is to be fought. On one hand are the Pandavas and their armies, their supporters. On the other side are the Kauravas with their supporters, and both the armies are ready to fight. And just before the war is to begin, Arjuna asks Shri Krishna to take him in between the two armies who are now arrayed for war, so that he can have a better look at all the people who are ready to fight with him and his army. And when Shri Krishna takes him in his chariot in the middle of the battlefield, and Arjuna surveys his opponents, looking at all his relatives, his gurus, he is suddenly overcome with an untimely grief. And he is so much overcome by grief, depression, that he decides not to fight. And in that depression, he turns towards his charioteer and his friend Shri Krishna and tells him that he doesn't want to fight. Shri Krishna, like an expert crisis manager, intervenes and takes Arjuna from his depression, from his dejection, from his despair, from his decision not to fight, to a state of enlightened consciousness where he realizes that as a Kshatriya, it is his duty to fight for righteousness. Ultimately, it is for this war that all his life he had prepared. This is an extraordinary dialogue between Arjuna and Shri Krishna. So the setting of the scripture is extraordinary. A battlefield. Sometimes the question arises, this dialogue took thousands of years ago. Does the scripture have anything of relevance to the modern world? The answer is yes, because Gita deals with questions of human consciousness and evolution of consciousness that are eternal. As long as there is human being struggling with evolution, with a conscious evolution of his own consciousness and the methods and the tools to do it, Gita will have a relevance. Not only has Gita inspired great giants in the past, like if we look at India, we have Bal Gangadhar Tilak, we have Swami Vivekananda, we have Radha Krishnan, we have Sri Aurobindo, and in the West we have Roma Rolla, Max Muller, and even the founders of quantum physics, Enrico Fermi and others, were inspired by Gita. And it continues to inspire people even now. Gita is an encyclopedia of spirituality. It is like a giant river that has multiple tributaries that come to it and are absorbed in it, and then it moves forward towards its goal of self-realization. So in Gita, those people who follow the path of Karma Yoga, the yoga of work, will find hints, clues, and directions. Those who follow Jnana Yoga or the yoga of knowledge will find an extraordinary synthesis of Vedanta. Those who follow Bhakti Yoga or the yoga of devotion will find exclusive directions about how to go about Bhakti Yoga. There are clues for Hatha Yogis, for Raj Yogis in this extraordinary river which contains within itself multiple streams which were existing then in the India of the time. This is a very old scripture, and when it is handed over to us in the modern time, we need to be aware of what was the meaning, what was the consciousness of the society at that time, so that we can better understand and reapply what was said at that time to our present time. The purpose of this series is to let the listener walk on the path of discovery of what Gita is all about. It is a scripture that can guide us even now and make our lives more rich and more fruitful. Thanks.